Greetings, I'm Rose. Welcome back to my sewing cave. In this video, I walk you through the pattern hacking techniques I use to create the perfect layering tee. I love wearing my summer dresses, just like the prairie dress I made in my previous video. I think they should be worn year-round, but unfortunately, it does get a little bit cooler, especially where I live in the Pacific Northwest. So I need an additional layer underneath my dresses. Now, I have tried, turtlenecks and long sleeve like underlayers, but I always feel like they bunch and they don't look great, and then it messes with the neckline of your dress. To minimize the neckline contrast between the layering tee and the dress I'm wearing, I have actually hacked the Vanessa Pouzet wanted tee and changed the neckline just a little bit. And then what I have also done is, because I've kind of leaned towards the vintage styling, I wanted to add a little bit of a flourish to my sleeves. So I have taken the sleeves from the Forget Me Not Vera pattern. It is a free top pattern. With all of these, I will give you my actual measurements and the measurements of the pattern so that you would know maybe what adjustments you may need to do. I figured the more information you know, the more tools you will have when doing these hacks for your own body shape. Now, the two patterns I used for these hacks do have a limited size range. The Vanessa Pouzet, it ends at 42.5-inch bust. I have a 45-inch bust, so it's already a little bit small. Both of these patterns are made for knit, so you have a little bit of flexibility, but you may need to grade up or down your patterns depending on your own measurements. The Forget Me Not Vera top, it is designed up to a 48.5-inch bust measurement. Now, if you have any questions about anything that I'm going over, please feel free to add them in the comments. I am going to reference a couple other YouTubers and their tutorials they have, especially as to the Vanessa Pouzet wanted tee. They are so detailed. I'm sure I would do that a disservice if I created a sew-along that they have already completed. The sew-along I use to sew up the Vanessa Pouzet wanted tee is from Whitney of Tomcat Stitchery. I don't even bother looking at the instructions. They're in French. I can't read them. So I just defer to Whitney's sew-along, and it has never steered me wrong. So for this black and white version, it is straight out of the pattern. I have not made any alterations. I have just stitched it out of the largest size. The fabric I used is a cotton spandex blend. It's an art gallery print. I bought it from my local store, Wildwood Creative. If they still have any in stock, I will put that in the description box. For this shirt, I used my sewing machine and my serger. I still haven't overcome the fear I have over my cover stitch, but you could just sew this all on your sewing machine if that's all you have. Ballpoint needle and a slight zigzag will work just fine. Here is the first version of just the wanted tee underneath my first prairie dress. Now you'll see here we've got the neckline kind of pops up above the sweetheart, and then on the sides we also have the neckline showing outside of the straps. Now, I do like how tight fitted the wanted tee is. There's minimal ease, but this is the retro sleeve length, so it's not really keeping me warm. I will need a longer length. The wanted tee does come in a longer length, but I wanted something that kind of aligned more with the 1970s vibe of these prairie dresses I've been making. After making this up, I like this fabric, but I know I'm going to need to alter this neckline a little bit, and I wanted different sleeves. So I treated this as almost like a muslin, as a starting point, showing me which alterations and hacks I wanted to make in my next iteration. So I wouldn't usually wear these t-shirts underneath all these dresses, but I thought I could highlight how they would work underneath different styles. So this is another art gallery fabric. This is in the mustard color. I have added the sleeves of the Forget Me Not Patterns Vera tee. Between the first version and the second version, I forgot the exact alterations that I wanted to use to create this tee. So one of those things, when you make a muslin, don't rush. Write down those changes that you'd like, and don't rely on your memory like I did, because it failed me. So I didn't make any changes to the neckline, even though it still pops up here and it kind of pokes off the side. But I love these sleeves. The Vera top is designed for more ease than the wanted top. So I'm going to show you how I did those alterations. Here is the wanted tee sleeve with the fitted armscye, and here is the Vera sleeve. See how it has a lower armscye? So there will be more fullness in the Vera than the wanted tee. but I want the volume of this sleeve on this sleeve that is very fitted. What I do is I just overlap these. And what I've done is I have matched up my center points like so. But you see how we've got a higher arm's eye on the Vera than the Wanted? So we will need to taper this out, and then when we hit the base, mark that here, and then we want to taper that fullness out. I am keeping the grain line parallel on both the Wanted Tee and the Forget Me Not, so that way that the sleeve stretches as it was designed. I tape the bottom so it doesn't shift. So I'm going to turn this under. You can see the arm's eye of the Wanted Tee under here. You see that? And then you've got the Vera. So I'm taping this down, and I will trace the Wanted Tee arm's eye onto the back of the Vera pattern. And we have a 3/8 seam allowance on the Wanted Tee, so I want to mark this down about a 1/2 inch, just to make sure we have plenty of space. If we don't mark it down, we could have the wrong angles, and then when we do connect these seams, they might point in an odd direction. But we see we've got the base of the Wanted Tee and how full it gets at the bottom. So I'm going to trim this down just so you can kind of see the changes we'll be making. Now the arm's eye of the Vera top matches the arm's eye of the Wanted Tee, but we still have all of this fullness that we will need to taper out. So I am marking 3/8 from the base of the sleeve. I have marked 3/8 from the base of the sleeve, and then what I'm going to do is just have a taper from that point here. So all of this will be removed. Okay. And then we'll do the same on this side. And you can still see the base of the Wanted Tee underneath. Now the Vera top has this cuff. You can use a short cuff or this full cuff, but I use the full cuff, which gives it the full length, and we can just cut this off because we will have a full length sleeve once we add the cuff. So when you sew this up, just like most knit t-shirts, you'll stitch the sleeve in flat, and then you'll close the seam at the bottom, and then follow the directions on the Forget Me Not Vera top, and that will require you to gather in the base of the sleeve end into the cuff. So we are done with the drafting hack of the Vera top sleeve. For my third version, I use this double brush poly. It is a lot warmer than the other art gallery knits. It does retain heat a lot more than the art gallery knits because the art gallery knits are a cotton blend and this is 100% polyester. I probably wouldn't layer it like this, but I do have that option to wear it with a dress should I so desire. So this was my third version, so I did make some changes to the pattern. So I took off the dress so you could look at the alterations I've made. I've removed some fullness out of the sleeves because I was running short on fabric. I have lowered the neckline 1 inch so that way the top of the neckline is hidden underneath the bodice of sundresses I wear. And then I've also opened the neckline 1 inch just to align more with the straps. I will show you how I did that. This is the front of the Wanted Tee. On my third version, I lowered the neckline by 1 inch. I increased the width of the neckline by 1 inch. So all you need to do is mark 1 inch on both the side and the bottom, and you've lowered the neckline. After you've lowered the neckline, we have the band pieces. I know they look confusing, but trust me, follow Whitney's tutorial on Tomcat Stitchery and she'll make it seem so easy. Here are our bands. This is what goes up and around the neck, and this goes across. Now when we lowered the necklines, we increased the circumference of the neckline. So we need to add a little bit to both bands to make up for that circumference. When it comes to t-shirt bands, we want the bands to be under tension. If I added an inch to both bands and they were cut on the fold, they would be too loose and they could possibly flop forward. So all you would need to do, add a piece of paper to your band, and here's my ruler, and I'm adding 1/2 inch. And then all of this is cut. You would do this on the low neckline and the back neckline. Now, when I lowered this neckline, I have changed the shoulder. I would not be able to stitch this in place because we'd have extra fabric on the back. So what you would want to do is mark the 3/8 for the seam allowance and taper. And this would allow the smaller strap to match. So that is the alteration I used on the mustard floral version. But I did one more alteration on the mustard floral. I did not have enough fabric. So if you're trying to save fabric, you can cut the back on 2 separate pieces as long as you add seam allowance. Or what you can do is remove some of the fullness from your sleeve. So what I have done, I have just overlapped my pattern piece and kept the arm's eye the same. You see I folded this over? This has removed 2 inches of fullness, but I still have the same arm's eye. Here is my 4th version. I had plenty of fabric, I had 1.5 yards, so I was able to cut out the full sleeve, so you can notice the fullness difference here. And this is also a bamboo blend rib knit, so it's actually a little bit drapier than the double brush poly I just used. Now, because it is a little bit slinkier and drapier, the neckline kind of opened up a little bit more than anticipated, but I think it works great as a layering tee with this dress. Now this version, I used the same pattern alterations I used in the mustard floral version. I do have the lower neckline, the open neckline, the full sleeves, but I did notice as I was wearing the mustard floral one, it tended to ride up a little bit. So what I did is I've added a little bit more ease around the hip line to prevent it riding up. I will point out though, because this fabric is a little bit shifty, you can sometimes see my bra. When I wear it underneath the shorter prairie dress, it works perfect. 5th and final version for now, not forever. So I used a lightweight black ponte knit, and I had, based on the bamboo knit version, I had added that width back to the neckline because I was a little concerned about, it flopping around like it did on the bamboo version, but the ponte has less stretch. So I could have kept the same width and it would have had that coverage. You can see here it's poking out a little bit because I added that width back in, but the ponte is more stable, so it would have been able to hold the shape much better. And this is still the lower neckline, but it's coming up because there is less stretch in the ponte. Now I was running short on fabric, so I removed width just like I did on the mustard floral double brush poly version. So I had to do that again. But I think if I was going to use a heavier weight fabric, even if I had the necessary fabric, I think I would still remove that width, because if you see here, it doesn't really drape because it is a denser ponte. So here's the black version without a dress. And I could wear this as a t-shirt because we do have a little bit of that coverage. But this ponte has less stretch, like I said before. So you can see it's kind of smooshing things. It's kind of sucking me in a little bit more. So this is great as a layering piece, and I like my clothing more fitted. But If you wanted to use this fabric and maybe give yourself a little bit more breathing room, I would add some additional ease. This ponte is a lighter weight ponte, but it is a rayon nylon blend. When I choose my ponte fabrics, I choose pontes without any polyester. The pontes with polyester tend to pill a little bit more. They just have kind of a lower quality feel to them. I'm not saying all pontes with poly are lower quality. That's just my personal experience. My favorite of the 5 is the bamboo knit. I think it looks beautiful underneath my mustard rose dress that I made that I created with you all. I think this black version is going to work really well to layer underneath dresses. The mustard floral was more of like a muslin, so I probably won't use that as much as a layering piece. It works okay with my olive dress, and I have a couple of other like solid color dresses that I'll work with, but I'll probably wear that on my own. I hope you enjoyed going through these pattern hacks. I am not a professional. All of these hacks are things that I've just kind of learned by playing around. I will link all of the patterns I used and any of the fabrics, if they're still available, I will link those as well. Please feel free to like and subscribe. If you would like to see certain alterations or other pattern hacks, let me know in the comments. In all of my videos, I give you my measurements. I think that it's important for people to understand that everyone comes in different shapes and sizes, and I hope that my measurements and the alterations I use to fit my measurements help you in your sewing creative journey. Thank you for stopping by. I hope to see you soon.